This is Talk with Audrey. Dolly Parton pulled herself up and out of poverty from the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains to become an international superstar and successful business person and philanthropist. And, as most would say, the epitome of the American dream. And to tell us how she did it and how you too can tap into your inner Dolly and put wings on your dreams, Lauren Marino, the author of What Would Dolly Do? How to Be a Diamond in a Rhinestone World. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. This was a fun read.
It's meant to be fun and entertaining. I wrote it really, I think, first and foremost for her fans. But I think that the message that's in the book goes beyond being a Dolly Parton fan. You don't necessarily have to be a fan in order to get something from the book. And I think that it's just a great story, and there's so much more to her than I think that most people realize. Not only her incredible work ethic, but she's been one of the most consistently creative and successful fixtures in American culture for more than 50 years at this point. And that's a difficult thing to do. And she really just does it with incredible positive energy and works harder than anyone else day after day. And is just disciplined and spiritual and just gets this incredible energy from her belief in herself and her belief in God and her belief in her gift. So she's a much richer character than I think.
Absolutely. And I actually met Dolly Parton in the airport in Los Angeles.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. I at first I didn't think it was her,
Wow.
because she was just white. There was this woman in these very high heels, this really blonde hair. And I remember I thought, gee, that looks like Dolly Parton. And you don't expect to see Dolly Parton in the airport in LA, right? You just don't expect that.
No.
Yeah, so I had to double back real quick. And I said, excuse me.
Yeah.
She was sweet,
Yeah.
very sweet.
Good. Everyone says how sweet she is.
Yes, she was very sweet. And so to read this book after having met her many, many, many years ago was just eye-opening. You actually admired her from the time that you were a young girl.
Yes, I did. I grew up in Cincinnati, and even though it's considered a Midwestern city, it's right on the border of Kentucky, and it has a lot of country music there. So I grew up listening to a lot of Dolly Parton and always liked her. And when I was our family on vacations, we would drive down through Kentucky and Tennessee, and we'd go to Gatlinburg and go to what is now Dollywood, but back then was called Silver Dollar City before she took it over. So I have that from my childhood. There was a year when I was probably 11 or 12 when I heard that Dolly Parton was playing at the Ohio State Fair in Columbus. So I jumped in the car with my neighbors and went up there and saw her live. And it was really just a life-altering experience. And it may have been the first live music I saw like that up close with a superstar like her. And the way that she talked to the crowd and bantered and brought this tiny little woman, she's only 5 feet tall, she's a little person, but to bring all of this incredible energy off of the stage into the audience and to see that feedback between audience and performer, it really altered me in some way. And it made me a lifelong fan of live music. And I see a lot of live music, but I loved it. I was a child, and then cut to 30 years later, and I was going through a divorce. I lost my job all in the same year, and I had 2 little kids I was taking care of. And at this point now, I'm in my late 40s, and I had to reinvent myself, and it wasn't something I expected to have to do at this. I thought I had everything all set up, but that's not the case, and I don't think it ever really is the case. So my girlfriend came to town and me to see Chris Chenoweth's woman show on Broadway to cheer me up, and the whole monologue halfway through the show about how growing up in Arkansas, she had no role model, and that Dolly Parton was the only person that she could aspire to be, and she wanted to be Dolly Parton. And then she burst into Go Pharaoh, which is a beautiful Dolly Parton song. And the lyrics are quite simple, but the power behind them, the emotion behind them is so tremendous. And so Kristen burst into song. I burst into tears, and I said, what after the show, I was so moved. I thought I need to go back and dig deeper into Dolly Parton and why am I having that kind of reaction to her? And so I started studying her and researching her and found that there was so much more to her than I realized. And in a way, reading about her, especially reading about her childhood, that she was a little bit of an outsider and a dreamer and a dreamy little kid, and she spent a lot of time running around outdoors, kind of living in a fantasy and envisioning the life that she wanted for herself. And that reminded me of my younger self. It reminded me of that 11-year-old girl in front of the stage having a special moment and being independent and full of hope. And I thought, I need to go remind myself of who I was back then and dig in and do what Dolly would do. She would
Wow.
pull herself up. She would figure out what was wrong and how it happened, and she would make it better. And she really that inspired me to go and write this book. And I really started studying her, researching her for my own benefit, for myself, really to cheer myself up and to give myself some strength. And the more I read and I was looking at all of the old interviews with her, like her Barbara Walters interview from the late 70s, where she's still that early, 70s Dolly, and they're on her tour bus, and Barbara Walters is interviewing her, and she tells Barbara exactly her plans for the future. She had a vision of what she wanted. And if you look back, every single thing that she said she was going to do, she ended up doing. So I just appreciated that she had this dream, this vision, and then she went out there and did all of the work required to make that dream happen. And I thought, I can do that too. And you know what? There's so much to learn from her. I think other people can learn from her also. So all these little life lessons started popping up. And she's famous for her Dollyism. She has all of these funny, some are funny, some of them are just very wise, some of them are both. But she has all these things like if you don't like the road you're on, start paving a new one. Or, she's very famous for if you want the rainbow, you have to put up with the rain. And I started writing down all of her life lessons and all of her wise sayings, and a book started to take form in my mind, and I outlined the book based on different parts of life, whether it's love and marriage or having the right people in your life. It's about being a dreamer, or it's about your creativity. She has a very specific creative process and is very disciplined in it. But she gets inspiration all the time from other people, really from interacting with other humans and seeing their experience. And that's why her writing is just incredible storytelling. And I don't know that a lot of people realize that she's really first and foremost an incredible songwriter. I mean, she's an American treasure. She has somewhere between 3 and 5,000 songs in her catalog, and a lot of people don't even realize that she wrote a lot of them. Like Whitney Houston took um, took her song for The Bodyguard and made it into a huge hit.
Oh,
But
yes. Oh,
Dolly had
yes.
recorded that song 3, 4 decades earlier and had made it a big hit. Um, and Elvis actually wanted to record I'll Always Love You. And this was before she was a star. And she was so excited that she thought this was her big break. Elvis was going to play her song. And the night before she was supposed to go into the studio to meet with him, um, Elvis's manager called her and said, Elvis doesn't record anything unless he gets 50% of the royalties and a writing credit. And she just broke down and crying and said, but I can't do that. This is one of my most important songs. This song means so much to me. And she turned Elvis down, which is really saying something about how strong she is and how much belief she has in herself. And that she wasn't going to just give her talents away to other people. She was going to make it work on her own terms.
She really stuck to it.
Yeah, she really did. She really did. And she's still doing it. She's still
Yes.
doing it. When she's 72 years old, she wrote her first children's album and toured for that. And she's doing a new album, I believe, and is going to be touring next year. But beyond that, she's a big television producer, and the two movies about her childhood both were nominated for Emmy Awards. And she was also one of the original producers for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which people would never expect. But she has her hand in. Not only is she this incredible artist, but she is a tough as nails businesswoman. And saying you can be a creative person and you can be a spiritual person and you can be a wildly successful person all at the same time. And it's really about keeping your eyes on the prize, but also having the right people in your life and not uh, really, she's been able to sustain this because she knows where she's coming from. And every day she wakes up at 4 in the morning. She says her prayers, she says her affirmations, she writes down her goals for the day, and then she starts songwriting. And she always says, I like to get up early because that's when God throws all the good ideas out there, and I want to be the early bird. Um,
Wow.
so she's been able to sustain it, which a lot of people in that position cannot do. Um, and beyond that, she's also a huge philanthropist, and she has built the first women's health center in Sevier County, where she grew up. Because when she was growing up, the women didn't really have health care. When her mother had 12 kids back to back, when Dolly was born, the doctor came to deliver at the house, and her daddy paid the doctor with a bag of cornmeal because they had no money. So she wanted to make sure that no woman had to go through what her mother went through, being sick all the time, and really, and having no one, you know, other than the doctor who basically on horseback or jeep went around from house to house. There was no health care there, so she provided that in her community. But my favorite thing is that she founded the Imagination Library, which is, not many people know that Dolly Parton is one of the biggest literacy advocates in the country and possibly in the world. But she started the Imagination Library 18 years ago, and because her father never learned to read or write, and she knew how much that held him back. So she went to her hometown as soon as she was able and had the money to do it, and she started giving free books to children. And from there, it has grown into this huge international foundation where if you are a parent or about to become a parent, you can sign up your child, and you will get a free book in the mail every single month for the first 5 years of your life, addressed specifically to you from Dolly Parton, and all developmentally appropriate and age appropriate, so that by the time a child is ready to go to school, they have an entire library of books that they've had, um, all for free. And she was just celebrated in February at the Library of Congress for giving away her 100 millionth book, which is pretty incredible.
Absolutely
So she's
is,
a
right?
big believer in education and reading, and um, certainly that's what we need right now. That's what this country needs is to really put our take our values and back them up. And the way to do that is through reading and education. You have to, start with the children when they're young and get them to love learning and to open up their imagination.
Well, I understand Dolly wasn't actually involved in the book, but you did a great job of researching and putting all of this material together. I think there's only one Dolly Parton, without a doubt.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Absolutely. There is. She's really one of those special people. And I always say, if I could just aspire to be a little bit like her, maybe just a little bit every day,
Yeah.
whether it's through when you're struggling with writing, dealing with a problem with a friend, or thinking about what you want to do next with your life. She's set a great example, and she just seems to have figured it out somehow, which, considering where she came from, It's really saying something about her spirit. She took everything that was supposed to work against her and she used it and made it work for her.
Indeed, she did. I enjoyed this book. It's a great read. And, whatever it is you're going through in your life, I think we can all use some guidance. And you can take that guidance from, and if it's learning to be more positive or it's admiring someone's spirit and success and wanting to emulate that yourself, that's an okay thing. My guest has been Lauren Marino, the author of What Would Dolly Do? How to Be a Diamond in a Rhinestone World. All right, so come on, guys, put some wings on your own dreams. Lauren Marino, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Audrey.